Most people think their financial problems come from not earning enough money. But what if the real problem begins the moment your income finally increases? Imagine a typical situation in the United States or Europe. A young professional lands their first serious job. Maybe the salary is $70,000 a year. On paper, it feels like success. After taxes, that might become about $4,000 a month in take-home pay. At first, the plan seems simple. Live responsibly, pay bills, maybe save a little. But something subtle starts to happen almost immediately. The apartment gets upgraded from a shared place to a nicer one closer to downtown. Rent jumps from $900 to $1,800. Then comes the car decision. Instead of keeping the old reliable car, the logic becomes, now I can finally afford something better. So a new car lease appears, maybe $400 a month. Add insurance, fuel, and parking, and suddenly transportation costs reach $700 monthly. Then there are the quiet upgrades that don't feel like big decisions. A better phone plan, a few more restaurant dinners during the week, subscription services that slowly stack up, a weekend trip that goes on a credit card because, after all, you work hard and deserve it. None of these choices feel irresponsible. In fact, they feel like the natural reward for working harder and earning more. But when you run the numbers, something strange appears. That $4,000 monthly income begins to disappear faster than expected. $1,800 for rent, $700 for transportation, $400 for groceries and casual dining, $300 in student loan payments, $200 in subscriptions, streaming, and small recurring expenses. Suddenly, more than $3,400 are already spoken for. What remains at the end of the month is not financial freedom. It is often just a few $100s, sometimes nothing at all. And this is where the hidden trap appears, the lifestyle upgrade. Not luxury, not extravagance, just slightly better everything. Slightly better housing, slightly better car, slightly better experiences. The problem is that these upgrades don't increase your wealth, they simply increase your baseline cost of living. Economists sometimes describe this as lifestyle inflation, but psychologically, it feels very different. It feels like progress. Humans naturally compare themselves to their surroundings. If your coworkers drive newer cars, the old car begins to feel outdated. If your friends move into nicer apartments, the smaller place suddenly feels temporary. Social media quietly amplifies this effect. Everyone appears to be traveling more, upgrading more, living better. And so the invisible rule becomes, when income rises, lifestyle must rise with it. The financial system around us quietly encourages this behavior. Banks offer higher credit limits. Car dealerships advertise monthly payments instead of total price. Real estate listings emphasize affordability per month, not long-term cost. The language shifts your focus from ownership to payment. Instead of asking, can I truly afford this? The question becomes, can I manage the monthly payment? And that single shift in thinking is where many middle-class households unknowingly lose decades of financial potential. Consider a simple example. Imagine someone spends $400 per month on a car payment for 6 years. That is $28,800 in payments. Now imagine that same $400 invested monthly in a basic index fund earning an average of 7% annually. After 6 years, the investment would grow to roughly $35,000. But the real difference appears over longer periods. If those investments continued for 20 years, the total would approach $200,000. One choice creates a depreciating asset. The other quietly builds long-term wealth. Yet most people choose the car payment, not because they are careless, but because the lifestyle upgrade feels normal, justified, and socially expected. This pattern repeats across housing, electronics, vacations, and daily spending. A slightly nicer apartment may cost $800 more per month than a modest one. Over 10 years, that difference alone becomes $96,000. That is the price of a comfortable upgrade that almost nobody questions. And again, the decision rarely feels irresponsible. It simply feels like the next step in adulthood. The real financial cost is not the purchase itself. It is the opportunity cost of what that money could have become. Wealth is not built from dramatic financial decisions. It grows from quiet gaps between what you earn and what you spend.
The smaller those gaps become, the slower wealth grows. Lifestyle upgrades quietly shrink those gaps until they almost disappear. What makes this particularly interesting is that financially intelligent people often live very differently during their early earning years. Not dramatically differently, just slightly. They might keep the reliable used car for 5 extra years. They might choose a comfortable but not premium apartment. Their income may look identical to their peers, but their expenses remain carefully controlled. The difference is not visible in daily life, but over time it becomes enormous because every avoided lifestyle upgrade creates financial breathing room. That breathing room becomes savings. Savings become investments, and investments quietly compound while the lifestyle remains stable. 10 or 15 years later, the outcome looks surprising to everyone else. The person who appeared to live more modestly suddenly has significant financial flexibility. They can change careers, reduce work hours, or invest in opportunities that others cannot afford to consider. Meanwhile, many people who followed the normal lifestyle upgrade path remain dependent on the next paycheck, even with high incomes. This is not a story about extreme frugality or avoiding enjoyment in life. The real insight is much calmer than that. Income increases do not automatically create wealth. Only the gap between income and lifestyle does. And that gap becomes smaller every time life gets upgraded a little too quickly. When people say they feel stuck financially despite earning more than ever before, the answer often lies here, not in the salary itself, but in the quiet expansion of everyday life around that salary. Once that baseline rises, it becomes very difficult to reverse. Humans adapt quickly to comfort, but stepping backward rarely feels acceptable. That is why the most powerful financial decisions often happen right after income increases, not before. The moment when upgrading everything feels most deserved is also the moment when restraint quietly changes a financial future. And once you start noticing this pattern, something interesting happens. You begin to see lifestyle upgrades everywhere. In advertising, in social pressure, in conversations about what someone deserves after working hard. The system is not designed to make people poor, but it is very effective at keeping them financially stationary. The upgrade always feels small in the moment, yet over time, those small upgrades become the difference between working for money and having money quietly work for you. If this perspective gave you something new to think about, consider subscribing for more calm, reality-based discussions about how money actually works in everyday life.